Welcome back to my YouTube channel where I sit down with my friends and people that I look up to who have inspired me. Today, I have another guest who me and him have had numerous conversations before, and I'm happy to have him now on my channel so that he can share some of the ideas and some of the things that he talks about on his own YouTube podcast, which is Manpatria. Dumo, welcome to my YouTube channel.
Hi, Treasure. It's great to be on your show. Thanks for having me. And as always, I'm always looking forward to having a good conversation with you.
Yeah, no, it's good to have you as well. I had Kuketso the other day and I thought, you know what, just to complete the Holy Trinity, let me have you today.
Yes. No, so thanks, man. Thanks a lot.
And,
And
hopefully,
Koketso.
so yeah, I could continue.
Oh, sorry. No, Koketso, yeah, is a great guest to have. So it's a good thing that you started off with him, definitely.
Are you feeling a bit of pressure there? Is that what I'm sensing?
Yeah, exactly. You should have started with me first. Now you bring him.
And
Now
then
I
I
have
bring
to like
you.
do better.
Hey, I'm telling you. And the reviews were crazy on that podcast. People were enjoying Kuketso's conversation and the things he was saying. So I hope you have your A game today.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I drank a lot of coffee. I got green tea, so hopefully my brain will cooperate.
No, in any event, Dumo, tell us what Menpatra is and what Menpatra is about, because when I had my discussion with Kuketso, I did highlight that he was one, or rather a co-host of the show there at Menpatra.
Yeah, yes, he was. And that's when Menpatria was used to cover current events. But that has changed. So basically what Menpatria is now, it's a purely libertarian podcast that attempts rather to discuss current issues from a libertarian perspective. I mean, so far on the website and also on our YouTube channel, we have episodes where we just speak about the theory now. So it's about 4 episodes, but it's just purely on theory. It's just to how can I put it? It's just to build up the listener for the current events so that they know like what framework we're speaking from. Because what I've noticed online is that a lot of people, they have an idea of libertarianism, but they don't really know the core foundations of it. And again, it's not to criticize them in any way. I understand why, because a lot of the people that are online discussing political issues, a lot of them don't have the time to actually read and understand what some political philosophies are, right? And they got kids, they have to go to work, they got so many responsibilities. So I just thought, hey, you know what? Maybe let me not just speak about stuff. Let me first start off with, and this is after like 3 years. Let me first start off with laying down the intellectual foundation and then moving forward from there. Because what I plan to do is include more content on the YouTube channel. And then from there, on videos, I'll say, okay, but listen to episode 1 where I said this, listen to episode 3 where I said that. And I think that'll build the foundation nicely, as opposed to just speaking and then assuming or assuming that your viewers know what viewpoint you're speaking from. And a lot of the times they don't. They need to be told what it is. And I think it's unfair of me to expect my viewers to, or expect any viewer that visits my channel, to know the framework that I'm speaking from without actually laying it out and giving them the opportunity to hear the framework. So that's where Menpatria is and what it's about right now.
All right, I understand because I remember there was a time where you used to do your live shows on, I believe it was Monday, every Monday, if I'm not mistaken, with Kuketso and Zuzo. And the funny thing is, I woke up one morning, or rather one evening, and I was like, wait, Menpetra is supposed to be today. And there was no Menpetra show, it was just blank. And at some point, you even deleted all the videos that you guys had done prior. And I was like, what is this guy doing?
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah,
what
so
what brought about the change though, in terms of you having to move away from the shows that you were doing? Because I feel, oh, I rather believe that they had a good audience and people were actually buying into what you guys were talking about and engaging with you guys, not only on Twitter, but on the channel itself during the live shows, because you had me on one of your shows. I believe it was when Zondo was being selected to be our Chief Justice. So I'm kind of trying to understand what brought about that particular change from having those live shows to now then deciding that it's more of an educational basis video.
yeah. So the first one was that the first reason was that when it came to a perspective of growing, um we were not growing. Like, and I was very disappointed with that. Despite the good content, despite us actually researching the topics beforehand, and applying our minds on what we're going to talk about. Because usually, what we'll have be 5 minutes before, we'll just run down what we're going to talk about and so forth. And then sometimes I'll say to Coquette, okay, what do you want to talk about? Hey, this is topic. I'm like, okay, cool. You're going to lead with that one. So when I'm done with this one, it's your turn. And then, so I try to do that. And I think it worked, but I just felt that, like just looking at the growth, we were just not growing adequately. So I felt, so when I looked at a an analysis on your market and what they listen to. And then what I found was that our audience overlapped with a lot of other big content creators. And as a result of that, we were always second fiddle, unfortunately. So if the big content creator was on, our views would just boom, like
Go
the
down.
amount of people that are watching would just go down completely, and so forth. And we found that, like, in terms of ranking, we weren't really like preferred the most. So then I thought, okay, if I had to really leave, like, what dent will I leave? And I probably wouldn't be much of a dent, because not many people actually came to me and said, hey, I didn't see your content. In fact, how I knew that people were not listening or viewing our content was when they said, they would come into us and say, oh, what did you say on your latest episode? I'm like, bro, we haven't recorded for 6 months and you're asking that. Then I was like, oh, okay. So
You're
this
never
guy doesn't
watching.
listen. He's not watching. But I can tell, like, you see the details that you're bringing up now.
Yeah.
That's actually what happened.
Yeah.
And you followed the patterns,
Yeah.
and that means you actually observed what was going on. And I really appreciate that, to be honest. Yeah, you were probably the first person that actually mentioned that. So yeah, it was a growth thing. And then when you do this for a while, you have to ask yourself, okay, look, I've got a job, I'm doing A, B, C, and D, and this is not really growing. And and don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about we have to get like 1,000 subscribers every day. I'm talking about like steady growth. Like when businesses grow steadily, like it makes a difference in the long run. Like, you see over like 5 or 10 years, you see that, oh, they made a lot of ground, but we were not even growing steadily. So one of the biggest disappointments was that whenever we went live, and we would only get like one or two subscribers at most per episode. So that's not really decent growth. You need to be getting at least like 9 or 10 per week, right? And then that'll help the algorithm. And then also the only time, and also we only got a lot of subscribers when we appeared on other shows. And now people say, "Oh, that's great," but I'm like, "No, but now the problem is that now I'm going on other shows to get subscribers. I'm not really going on the other show to really enjoy having a conversation there. I'm just going for the subscribers and I'm running. It almost feels like I'm a grifter, and I don't
Yeah.
like being a grifter. I don't like that at all. I want the algorithm to show my content to people, and then people can decide for themselves, as opposed to me just going in and trying to grift for subscribers, which was not the best option. So that's when I felt that, okay, that's when I felt perhaps the best thing is to do is just to, like, tone it down a bit. And also at the same time, our content was, a lot of it was high time preference content, meaning that it was only good for the time when we recorded it.
Mhm.
And So it's like, even if I leave it up there, it's not like more people are going to watch it anyway, because the topics that we were discussing, they people moved on to another one, and so forth and so forth. So that's the thing with high time preference content. You have to really keep creating it and keep growing. And you weren't doing that, unfortunately. So yeah, I had to stop. And then I had to start from scratch. So yeah. So I started from scratch again. That's not to say the Coquettes on Zuzo won't come back. They could come back. But I have other plans for the podcast, and I do think they will be able to contribute in a meaningful way. But I just need to just find a way and how it could work.
No, I understand totally. It makes sense what you're saying, because also a pattern that I had noticed during your time doing live streams was when Big Daddy Liberty was on the show, the views would go up exponentially. And so now it would seem as if you gain in traction. And then the moment Big Daddy Liberty is not on the show, the views come down and they go back to normal, which is something that is unfortunate, because you guys had basically shared a common platform and a common audience, and so there isn't much ground that we you were breaking in terms of trying to explain your side and your perspective, because most of the views, if I'm not watching you, I'm watching Big Daddy Liberty. If I'm not watching Big Daddy Liberty, I'm watching Ernest in his channel. If it's not him, similar Roman, or your Ronaldo, like there was a similar. And also one of the things that I also noticed was, for example, when the president was hosting his family meetings, there would always be that conflict of, where are you going to watch the live show? Are you going to watch Ernest? Are you going to watch Ronaldo? Are you going to watch Big Daddy Liberty? Because most of the audience is basically the same. So there wasn't much ground that was being made in that particular sense of the audience. But in any event, what made you start your YouTube channel?
Yeah. At the beginning in 2018, it was just the reason why I started it, because I felt that people needed to just hear a different perspective on things. I felt that libertarianism at that point in time was not really being getting the push that it deserved. Um, so that's what really got me going in the first push on that. So yeah, it was mainly that, just giving libertarianism a chance. I felt that even the libertarian YouTube channels in general, they don't do that well. Um, but I think it's because of the fact that um, maybe they start with libertarianism and not with the current issue. But there is this guy. Well, he's not a libertarian, but he's a Randian, or you could say a objectivist. He's a Scottish guy, and he calls himself Liquid Zulu. Yeah, he's not Zulu himself, but but
Yeah.
but he creates excellent content. But the way he does his content is that he will talk about an issue, and he'll tell you why he thinks he doesn't like A, B, C, and D. And then what he does in that, he throws in the libertarian theories and everything like that. But he does it in a very entertaining way. So I think, but he's got 5,000 subscribers now, which is good. Like, it wasn't too long ago he had 2,000, but now he's getting the recognition he deserves, which is great. And I think he might be the biggest, let's say, anarcho-capitalist YouTuber in. It won't be too long until he gets that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he's doing it right. He's doing it the right way, I would say. But yeah, that's basically, yeah, well, just to sum it up, that's one of the reasons why I started, was to give libertarianism a chance.
Yeah, and on that note, then I would ask you to explain what libertarianism is, because I know you
Mhm.
have an episode. I believe that's the first episode on your channel on what is libertarianism. So if you could just explain that to my audience.
Yes. So libertarianism is a political philosophy that aims to create a setting of um, conflict-free management of resources by creating norms, right? By creating norms that reduce conflict. So What are those norms? It's based on 4 principles. It's very simple. The first one is a self-ownership principle. The second one is the Lockean homesteading principle. And the third one is property acquisition by means of production and property acquisition. And the last one is property acquisition by means of contractual transfer. So basically, those 4 rules are just there to enable a society where there is zero to, well, let's say very little to zero conflict. And by conflict, we mean fighting over scarce resources. So I'll just give you a simple example. So let's say you're on an island, you're alone on an island, right? So whatever resources are on that island, they are scarce, but you don't have to put any rules in place on how those items should be managed. Because why? You're alone. There's no one that you're competing with. But the moment the second person comes on, you have to put rules in place, because one day you could be fishing with the spear, and then the other occupant on the island tries to take that spear away from you, right? And then now you're going to be pulling it from each other. So that's a conflict. So what rules should you create to reduce those instances? So one of them is to assign private property. So property is the idea that it's idea that an item can be owned owned by someone. And by owning, we mean that that person has an exclusive right to control that resource. So let's say yours.
I
Oh,
lost you a bit
you can
there.
still
Now
hear
you're
me.
back. Now I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, apologies. Yeah, it even tells me, that my connection is unstable. Apologies. So in the situation of the stick, right? And let's say you are using the stick and it's your stick because you created that stick. If that guy tries to take it away from you, that means that person is violating your private property rights, because it's your stick. He can only use it if you say that he can use it. It belongs to you. So, and then that's when the non-aggression principle comes in, which means that you shouldn't commit aggression. So when you try to use force against anyone's property or anyone's property, then the person who's on the receiving end of that force or an aggression can use force to stop that from happening. Okay, so that's the non-aggression principle in a nutshell. But ultimately, those rules are there to incentivize people to not commit aggression against others, right? So that's the whole idea. And that's the problem of social order, and therefore we create those 4 rules as a way to manage society and to ensure that resources are used in a conflict-free manner. That's libertarianism in a nutshell.
You explained it perfectly, and I hope
Yes.
everyone understood what you were saying. And one of the things that I've always noticed is that we apply these libertarianism principles in our day-to-day lives and how we interact with people, because even the laws themselves that govern us are, I would say, derive their principles from that ideology. And so the point of contention of, if I can put it that way, is, or not a point of contention, but a matter of understanding is, why is, libertarianism not as popular, for example, here in South Africa?
That's an excellent question. I think it's because there's many reasons. I think it's one of the reasons why libertarianism is not as popular is that if you had to try to sell it in the political arena that we have today, it's not appealing. I mean, like, let's put it to you this way. Imagine a Marxist politician comes along and he says that, you know what, the reason why you're poor is because of these rich people. They're taking all of your money and everything like that. But if you vote for me, I'm going to take all of that money and give it to you. And we're going to run the means of production and society's going to own it. And it's going to be equitable and everything like that. And then now I come along and I say, okay, guys, this is what I think we should do. I think we should have these 4 rules and everything like that. And then they just gotta be like, who's this guy? Like, he's talking about 4 rules and stakes and whatever. And this guy understands what I want, so I'm going to vote for him.
Yeah.
And I think also maybe some people even say libertarianism is a smart man's political philosophy. And now what they mean by that is that it's not really accessible as libertarians think it is, right? So that's, I think that's another problem as well, is that I think we kind of assume that everyone thinks like us because or thinks like a libertarian, and it's not necessarily the case. So for me, it's competition. We always on the back foot when it comes to pushing our ideology. But then someone would say, "Oh, but Dumo, what about Javier Milei?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but you look at Javier Milei, right? What he did was he doesn't push the ideology.
Yeah.
He goes to the people and he says, look, you guys are poor, you are broke, and you like this. You know why? It's because these politicians are introducing policies that are making you poor, and let me show you why. So he's doing exactly what the Marxists are doing,
But
but
the
he's turning the
opposites.
tables on them.
Yeah.
The exact opposite, yes. And he's got and the ground is fertile for that, for him to do that, because of the fact that these guys are poor. Well, not these guys. I mean, the Argentinian people are getting
Yeah.
poorer. Yeah, so that works. But in South Africa, I don't think it is as bad. And as much as we have challenges in this country, I'm not gonna lie, we have it good in many areas. Like in many other areas, we have it good. But that's not to say we must wait till everything gets bad. Um, but yeah, it's very difficult to really spread that message as well. And also libertarianism as well. Even with me, when I became a libertarian, I had to read a lot of literature as well. And again, people who are married, people who have kids, people who have 9 to 5 jobs or they work night shifts and stuff like that may not have the time to read that literature as well. That's also another issue. So it's not that there's many factors involved, but I just feel that when people are very busy with their lives, they want something that is simple to understand, something that they can connect to, and something that and yeah, it's something that's relatable. And libertarianism, it's almost like like I said, the question that you're asking: how can you create a society that reduces conflict up to the point where it's either eliminated or there's very little instances of it? That's not a question that everybody asks every day. The questions that people ask is, okay, how am I going to get more money? How am I going to pay for my kids' school
Yeah.
fees? Oh, the water's not running. Oh, now I have to go to the municipality. Those are the questions. And I think libertarians need to find a way into that. They just need to be smart about it. I just haven't figured it out yet, but there might be others who will be able to figure it out. But yeah, that's where you need to go. But I think Javier Milei, he did it well, and congrats to him. Well played.
One of the things that I've always done when discussing, for example, things of the the dichotomy between right and left and libertarianism is I always bring up the example of for example your ESCOM. There's always talks of privatization, and the other side is basically saying no, we don't want privatization. We want the government to have a monopoly, and the government should be the only source of electricity in the country. And I'm like, okay, that is all well and good, and that is a good argument to make. But the problem that you are now facing is they're giving you bad service. And what we mean by saying that this should be privatized is bring about competition into the market. Keep your ESCOM, that's fine, keep it. But bring competition to the market just as much as you see, for example, there's Checkers, there's ShopRite, there's Spar, there's
Yes.
Boxer, there's multiple retail stores where you can buy groceries. And if should myself, let's say, no longer want to buy my groceries at Checkers, I should have the opportunity or the right to go and say, no, Checkers, I'm good with your services. I'm going to shop right now and buying from them. But with the monopoly that the government is having on Eskom, you are unable to basically say, okay, I'm good with Eskom. I can, for example, maybe go to Treasure's Electricity or Dumo's Electricity or whatever the case may be. And so I think maybe that type of messaging is what should be put out there so that people can understand, some of the principles. And for example, another example of what I mean by that is the issue of expropriation without compensation. I always make the argument that the government has a monopoly on force, and so if you are to give the government ultimate control over your land, you will create so many problems for yourselves in the future. You might not see it now, and it might be, yeah, we did it, we stuck it to the white man who took our land, and then when it comes a time when there's a politician who doesn't like your point of view and he takes your house, you're not going to be particularly happy with that, because obviously now they will have a monopoly on the land that you have, and obviously on force itself. So that is some of the arguments that I make in terms of expropriation without compensation. I'm like, if we are to go that route, it means I will not have any rights that will protect me, that will from the government, from taking any property that I own, including my car, including my cell phone, including my TV. The list goes on and on and on. And so I think that's the type of messaging that maybe we should be having and putting out there, not in a philosophical way, so to speak, but to also engage it in an everyday life. Because I believe that's what even Trump did in America. He was like, you know what, the Democrats are basically saying, this is the party of the rich, and I'm gonna flip the script and say, but you guys are protecting the rich. One of his famous quotes when he's talking about taxes is like, the reason why they can't close the loopholes is because their friends are benefiting. So I'm only using what their friends are using. So now he has a checkmate on them. So I believe that's how we can also flip the script on the other side and say, but look, you guys are saying expropriation, NHI, and so forth, but it's not helping you. How about we try it this way and see if it won't work?
Yeah, those are all excellent points. Excellent. Yeah, I think, I think, if South Africa wants, if there is a libertarian politician that comes along and wants to flip the script, they got to be very smart, right? So, I mean, again, if you look at ESCOM, again, the problem with ESCOM, when you try to debate that, as you mentioned earlier, is that, like, we say you want more competition, but what the usual response from the naysayers would be, well, if we have more competition, then the price of electricity will go up even more, because greed is what drives these competitors. And then it's
Yeah.
like, oh my goodness, you know, and now you have to try bringing economic concepts and show them that, look, if there's more competition in the market fighting for, let's say, a fixed amount of money, you'll find that in order for them to get that money, they need to differentiate on price and price lower. And I work in an industry where price is king, right? It is, and you'll see customers moving from one supplier to the next because of price and the savings that they can make from it. But now the thing is that, when you try to explain it to the normal person, they don't see it that way. So what I normally do, is that I try to see it. I just try to push it from the perspective of that person and say, when you go to the shop and you look for a special, what do you look for? The lowest price, exactly. So that's what you do, right? So if that's what you're constantly looking for, and that's how you're going to buy people's products, what makes you think they're just going to raise electricity when the other one can keep his price down and then steal customers? That type of thing. So I think that the libertarian politician has to navigate that. And with EWC, the same thing. It's like, imagine now you get a car today, and then the government says, "Hey, this car is ours now because
Yeah. We
I
hate
don't
your
know, because it's
politics.
for the exactly, you hate your
Yeah.
politics, and we don't like your family, that type of thing, right? So yeah, I think there is a way to sell it, but it's quite a difficult one, because a lot of it is tied to the old system of apartheid and the legacy of that. And then people still, what I've seen, they still hold that close to them. Not that they shouldn't hold it close to them, but it can kind of cloud their thinking on the bigger picture. And to move them away from that is very, very difficult. But yeah, so I hear you.
And I see we are running out of time.
No
Elections
worries.
are coming up next week. And
Mhm.
I've asked Kuketo this question. Now I hope you will give your perspective on it. What is your criteria when it comes to voting? Because, you know, people always say that we don't know what to vote for. You guys keep telling us there are alternatives out there, but we don't know what to vote for. What are the things that people can look for in, you know, the millions of political parties that we have and say, okay, this best suits my particular vote, excuse me. This best suits my
Okay.
particular vote.
All right. Fair, fair. Yeah, so my criteria is that it's either you don't vote. If you don't vote, not a problem. But if you are going to vote, vote for the party that's going to give you a lot of freedom. So much freedom up to the point where, you know, that not the freedom to, let's say, assault others, but freedom in the sense that you can do whatever you want as long as you do not violate the private property of other people. That's the parties you need to vote for, not the parties that say we're going to give you more welfare payments. And I understand the reasoning behind it. I understand there are poor people in this country. I understand they do need assistance, but there is a ramification as a result of that. So the criteria is very simple: vote for the party that gives you the most freedoms as per the libertarian ideology, and then you will be on the right path. Yes, that's what I would say.
And I know one of your slogans is taxation is theft. If you could just
Yeah.
briefly talk on that.
Okay, cool. All right, so I'll make it quick. So the reason why I say taxation is theft is because of the fact that the government is laying a claim on your property without your consent. So imagine, let's say, for example, you live in a neighborhood, and I'm stealing a thought experiment from Michael Humer here, and then let's say someone is vandalizing your neighborhood, and then your neighbor decides to find that person and then takes them and imprisons them for doing so because he's vandalizing your property. Then he comes to everyone in the neighborhood. Then your neighbor goes to everyone in the neighborhood and says, "Hey, you need to pay me some money because the prisoners that I got, they need food, they need blankets, and everything like that." And then you say, "Well, that's not my problem. I mean, you decided to imprison them, you know." And then he says, "No, no, no. If you do not pay me, then I'm gonna take you and put me. I'm gonna take you and put you in my prison." So
Yeah.
effectively, I and then like now that is theft because like you didn't consent to this guy taking your money. So I argue that taxation is more or less like that because there isn't a contract between me and the government saying that I'm going to give over a portion of my salary to the government. But where I live, I I I actually consented to the landlord and said, "Okay, landlord, you're going to take so much money away from me every month so that I can keep living here." And I made that agreement and I signed the contract. But with the state, there's nothing like that. However, that's not to say that the state can't change that. I mean, I think if you want to be just, then the state has to say, okay, fine. The first step is that everyone that we get tax from, they have to consent to it, especially if it's income tax. And then the government must come to me and say, okay, listen, Dumo, um, here's the deal, and then we must negotiate, you
Yeah.
know. And then I think that's the way to go forward. So that's why I say taxation is theft. And now that I'm saying this, I'm not saying you must evade tax. Please, this is not a call for tax evasion. All I'm just saying is that look, I don't think it's a fair practice. I think the best practice is to negotiate the same way the landlord negotiates with me. So why can't the government do the same with its own citizens? Simple.
That is fair. That is a fair point. And I hope we'll have this discussion again, especially on the taxation is theft, because that's one of the things that I'm actually interested in, taxation. So, Dumo, thank you for having, or rather for coming on tonight. I always end my show with rapid questions, so I hope you are ready for those. The first question on my rapid question list is, what is your favorite time of the day?
When I go to sleep at night, because I love dreaming. I love dreaming. I used to be a morning person, but then That just changed. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm older now. I don't know. Like after I turned 25, I just hated the mornings.
Okay, that is a huge one. What is your perfect date?
Perfect date. Um, I don't know. What'll be a perfect date for me? No, I mean, okay, it'll probably be at a restaurant where they only serve meats only and stuff, and that yeah, that'll be the perfect date. Yeah, and then
Yes.
my date has to like meat as well. If she doesn't, then sorry. Um, then
Oh
it's not
damn.
perfect. Yeah.
You have standards right there. Those are standards. Okay, since we're on the
Yeah.
topic of meat, how do you like your steak?
Um, medium rare or rare. Yeah.
All
If it's
right,
a
that
T-bone, it's medium rare. If it's just a sirloin steak, then it's rare because there's no bones on it.
I see, I see. And the
Mm.
last one, what is your guilty pleasure?
Guilty pleasure. Um, watching couples TikToks or watching YouTube couple. Yeah, watching YouTube videos about couples. You know those couple vlogs and stuff? That's my guilty pleasure. Like I shouldn't be watching that stuff, but it's so entertaining. Like I can't get enough of it. Like if you come to my place and you go on my YouTube history, all you're gonna see is
It's
couple
just couple.
TikToks and couple YouTube. Exactly. I love it. No, I love it.
I am not judging you. I am not judging you. No, man, thank you for coming through. And I wish you well on your YouTube channel. You can just plug yourself and tell people what you're doing.
Yes. Okay. Cool. So, guys, I have a YouTube channel called Manpatria. Please check it out. I think there's only 4 episodes out right now. There will be more in the future. Yeah. And also follow our Twitter page as well at manpatria_ZA. Yes.
All right. Thank you, Dumo. And thank you to my audience for watching another video. I hope you enjoyed it. I know he is a clown, but I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and also comment. Tell us your views on our discussions today, and I will see you on the next video. Peace.
All right.